The Megaphobema robustum, also known as the Colombian giant red-legged tarantula, is a large, New World terrestrial native to the rainforests of Colombia as well as parts of Brazil. It is an extremely hot and humid tropical climate that experiences high rainfall throughout the year. This is a semi-fossorial species. In the wild, they dig far below the rainforest floor, and their burrows can sometimes extend several feet into the ground. In captivity, they do better off with a fossorial setup, and I usually try to fill my enclosures about halfway, sometimes a little bit more with substrate, so that the tarantula has the option to burrow if it chooses to. And in my experience, the majority of the time they will if provided the proper depth of substrate. This is a pretty large tarantula, being both bulky in build as well as having a pretty impressive leg span, with males usually averaging around 6 inches when fully mature, and females sometimes exceeding 8 inches in leg span. As stated before, I provide my M. robustums with plenty of substrate. I usually fill the enclosure about halfway, sometimes 3/4 of the way with substrate. I use a mixture of cocoa fiber and peat moss. I also provide an extra layer of sphagnum moss on top to help with extra humidity, as the species does come from a tropical climate and it does do well with an extra bit of moisture in the enclosure. I also give them a hiding spot, such as a piece of corkbark or a log of some sort, should they choose to utilize it, as well as a starter burrow. You just want to make sure that you pick something that is not too heavy, should the tarantula choose to dig underneath it, as a heavier object could very well crush the spider should it choose to burrow directly below it. This tarantula sports a very unique pattern and coloration, with a variety of reds, oranges, yellows, browns, and a black carapace. The only downside to keeping this species is you may not see them out and about very often once they settle in, because they are quite reclusive. However, this makes it almost like a treat when you do get to see the tarantula and admire its colors. This tarantula is an absolute blast when it comes to feeding time, as they never seem to get full. I usually feed them about once a week, at least for adults that is. Normally I will give my M. robustums about 4 or 5 large crickets, roaches, or superworms. It doesn't hurt to switch up their diet every now and again, but it's not really necessary. Spiderlings, I feed pinhead crickets and fruit flies, as well as baby mealworms, and juveniles can take on medium crickets and small mealworms. This is a pretty fast-growing species, with males taking about 2 to 3 years to mature, sometimes a little bit longer, and females taking about 4 to 5 years. One of the coolest things about this tarantula are its very unique defense mechanisms. Unlike most tarantulas, when threatened, the Colombian redleg will actually hunker down, flattening its body against the ground, and will bob its abdomen up and down in the air in an attempt to confuse and intimidate the attacker. Should this not work, the tarantula has a hidden weapon, a set of barbed hairs on its back legs, which are extremely sharp. The tarantula will actually spin around, twirling its legs like a helicopter, and will kick outwards with its spikes. If they make contact with skin, these spikes can cut or even draw blood. Like the majority of New World tarantulas, this species also possesses urticating hairs on its abdomen that can be brushed off at an attacker. Should they become anchored in the skin, these can lead to intense itchiness or rashes. The tarantula also has quite large fangs, and being a New World, the venom is on the weak side. However, it will absolutely hurt like an SOB should you get bitten by this tarantula, as after all, big spiders have big fangs. In addition to this, they are rather skittish and are quite fast, so definitely you want to keep an eye on them, and they are not an ideal species for handling, though they make for an excellent display species. all in all, I wouldn't recommend this species to newbies. However, if you kept a few tarantulas and are looking for something that's a bit more of a challenge, as well as something that's fun, exciting, and unique, then look no further. I would highly recommend this species to any intermediate or advanced keeper out there that has yet to acquire one, as you do not want to miss out on one of these. Well guys, that's a wrap on this one. Please, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out that Patreon. Also, give me a like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, and let me know what other species you'd like to see me cover, or just tarantula topics in general. Not even just tarantulas, as I am starting to branch out into other exotic pets, especially other types of invertebrates, such as jumping spiders, tree spiders, and scorpions. So if there's any of those that you'd like me to cover on this channel, feel free to make a suggestion. And until then, stay awesome.